I think this is an important section to have here. Here we see the power of the ring, not just taking hold of Boromir, but guiding his thinking and warping his reasoning. Gandalf and Elrond aren't wise, just, they're timid. Caution can appear timid at times. True-hearted men, they can't be corrupted. Isildur was an honored ancestor and king and considered wise by many, and he fell to the ring, as we heard in the council. The men of Gondor don't want power to do much, just overcome their foes, defend themselves. They should use the ring against the enemy, use his own power against him. Hello everyone, welcome to Aude and Tulava, where we are walking our way through Tolkien's Legendarium. Today we're starting on the last chapter in Book 2, The Breaking of the Fellowship. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel. I've linked a few different book versions on the description, and channel memberships are open as well if you'd like to kind of help support the channel that way. Let's dive in. After passing the Argonath, the company is thrust into Nen Hithwel, the lake that feeds the Falls of Rauris. Aragorn led them to the right arm of the river. Here upon its western side, under the shadow of Tol Brandir, a green lawn ran down to the water from the feet of Emunhen. Behind it rose the first gentle slopes of the hill clad with trees, and trees marched away westward along the curving shores of the lake. A little spring fell tumbling down and fed the grass. Here we will rest tonight, said Aragorn. This is the lawn of Parth Galen, a fair place in the summer days of old. Let us hope that no evil has yet come here. Now this really does sound like a lovely place. I love that there's a spring here, definitely helped me sleep since I use the sound machine. Hammond and Skull let us know in Tolkien's Unfinished Index, he tells us Parth is a sward, generally grass covered like topsoil, and Galen means green. So they're camping on the green sward. Easy. After the majesty of the Argonath and the little beauty of Parth Galen, Aragorn's comment brings us back down to earth a little bit. They're stopping in a nice little spot that has always been fair in the summer, though it's late February now. But the state of the world is in shambles. Evil is sneaking into every little place, even the ones that are beautiful and untouched by it for hundreds, if not thousands of years. But it's still there, still beautiful. Evil can't take over everything. And that's something we'll see in the Two Towers with Sam and Frodo too. But it does seem like the evil is creeping in pretty close. Aragorn is unable to sleep at night and comes over to Frodo and tells him to draw his sword. Frodo then drew the elf blade from its sheath. To his dismay, the edges gleamed dimly in the night. Orcs, he said, not very near, and yet too near it seems. I feared as much, said Aragorn, but maybe they are not on this side of the river. The light of Sting is faint, and it may point to no more than spies of Mordor roaming on the slopes of Amon Law. I have never heard before of orcs upon Emunhen, yet who knows what may happen in these evil days, now that Minas Tirith no longer holds secure the passages of Anduin. We must go warily tomorrow. Here we see Sting come in handy as, a bit of a divining rod for orcs, I guess. But we see again Aragorn talking about new things happening in these evil days. He's never heard of orcs on Emunhen. There's probably a good reason for that. We know orcs aren't exactly fans of sunlight, and they're pretty far from the Misty Mountains and the orc caves there, even though I wouldn't call them close to Mordor. They're a lot closer than the Misty Mountains, and the orcs could get to the eastern bank a lot easier, especially if Gondor held the passage of the Anduin. But Aragorn notes Gondor no longer holds those passages, so I guess anything at this point is possible. Not only does Gondor no longer hold the passages of the Anduin, we know that Sauron is messing with powers he shouldn't be messing with, and his orcs don't even have to cross the Anduin to be on this side of the river. I'll be honest, it took me a few read-throughs to really understand that, which, why I'm so intent on checking out maps in books now, because I will not make that mistake again. I want to know where people are. Now, I know some people aren't huge fans of Tolkien describing the environment, but I can't help but put this little bit in. It's just too good. The day came like fire and smoke. Low in the east, there were black bars of clouds like the fumes of a great burning. The rising sun lit them from beneath with flames of murky red. But soon it climbed above them into a clear sky. The summit of Tol Brandir was tipped with gold. Frodo looked out eastward and gazed at the tall island. Its sides sprang sheer out of the running water. High up above the tall cliffs were steep slopes upon which trees climbed, mounting one head above another, and above them again were gray faces of inaccessible rock, crowned by a great spire of stone. Many birds were circling about it, but no sign of other living things could be seen. Man, that's all I got. I don't know if you've ever been on the mountains and seen a sunrise, but it's one of the most breathtaking things you can ever see. The peaks gold with the sun before the light can actually get to you. It's amazing. And this section really made me think of Tolkien's time in Switzerland. I'm sure he He would have seen the Alps in the very early morning just like this. Sheer cliffs, inaccessible heights. Beautiful. But immediately after Tolkien remarks on the stark beauty of nature, we're reminded of the terrible choice that needs to be made. When they had eaten, Aragorn called the company together. "The day has come at last," he said, "the day of choice which we have long delayed. What shall now become of our company that has traveled so far in fellowship? Shall we turn west with Boromir and go to the wars of Gondor, or turn east to the fear and shadow? Or shall we break our fellowship and go this way and that, as each may choose? Whatever we do must be done soon. We cannot long halt here. The enemy is on the eastern shore, we know, but I fear the orcs may already be on this side of the water." There was a long silence in which no one spoke or moved. "Well, Frodo," said Aragorn at last, "I fear that the burden is laid upon you. You are the bearer appointed by the council. Your own way you alone can choose. In this matter I cannot advise you. I am not Gandalf, and though I have tried to bear his part, I do not know what design or hope he had for this hour, if indeed he had any. Most likely it seems that if he were here now, the choice would still wait on you. Such is your fate." Frodo did not answer at once. Then he spoke slowly. "I know that haste is needed, yet I cannot choose. The burden is heavy. Give me an hour longer and I will speak. Let me be alone." Aragorn confirms what we already know. Boromir is going to Gondor, but should everybody go with him or go their own separate ways and break the fellowship? Side note, this paragraph is the first time the word fellowship has been used in the, since like the prologue, so take that for what it's worth. He also brings up the fact that orcs are probably on the west side of the river too. I don't think he's doing that to scare anyone. I think it's more of him just making sure everybody's on the same page. They need to know what dangers are ahead of them, no matter which way they turn. I'm sure at least a couple of them thought the way to Gondor on the west side of the river would be a bit easier, as they wouldn't have to deal with orcs. But instead of choosing between the easy road and, you know, like with no enemies and a really hard road with definite enemies, it's enemies on like either way. And finally, Aragorn puts it as plainly as he can. It is Frodo's fate to choose where he goes from here. I mean, everyone gets to choose what they will do with themselves, but none of them are really carrying the ring. Frodo now has to choose his path to Mordor. Is he going to rest up in Minas Tirith, check out some maps, make a plan of action? Or is he going straight to Mordor, bumble his way through because Gandalf is no longer like there to lead him? Aragorn, like you can see, he's really torn here. One, he doesn't know what Gandalf's plan was at this point, but two, we also know his plan was to go with the company until he and Boromir would split off and head to Minas Tirith. He knows Frodo will need help to get through the troubles he will face, but he's supposed to bring his kingship around. It's his fate to be king. How can he live up to his name, Estel, if he's hiding in the brush, not helping Gondor? And even like among all that, he looks upon Frodo with pity, and pity is a pretty strong word for Tolkien. It's used 64 times in the book. And yes, while it's used flippantly at times, it has a grave and important use as well. Many will remember Gandalf telling Frodo about pity staying the hand of Bilbo instead of letting him slay Gollum. Well, in that section, pity is capitalized. I may have to maybe make a video on that later. Gandalf even tells us pity would be the way to his heart for the ring. Now, when you take out the jesting uses of pity, Bilbo being annoyed at Gandalf for almost spoiling the surprise at his birthday party, or Frodo pitying snails that carry their houses on their back, it's never a negative thing. It's different people truly caring about others and hoping and wishing they could help them. Aragorn here knows the anguish Frodo's feeling. He truly wishes he could do something to ease it. So he gives Frodo time. It's all he can do at this point. And as Frodo sits in silence, we get the unlearned wisdom of Sam. Frodo sat for a moment with his head bowed. Sam, who had been watching his master with great concern, shook his head and muttered, "Plain as a pikestaff it is, but it's no good Sam Gamgee putting in his spoke just now." Quickly, plain as a pikestaff means it's clear, obvious. Putting in his spoke means offering advice, kind of like giving your 2 cents. Sam here knows what has to happen. Frodo has to go to Mordor. The ring needs to be destroyed. It doesn't need to go to Minas Tirith or anything. And he suspects Frodo knows this too. It's just really hard to like finally make the decision. And we've already seen Frodo being reticent to take others with him into danger. It's, you know, his inheritance that he has to deal with. So Frodo leaves the company to walk and think. He ends up climbing the hill and finding a place with a flat stone in the middle. All that had happened since Bilbo left the Shire was passing through his mind, and he recalled and pondered everything that he could remember of Gandalf's words. Time went on, and still he was no nearer to a choice. Suddenly he awoke from his thoughts. A strange feeling came to him, that something was behind him, that unfriendly eyes were upon him. He sprang up and turned, but all that he saw to his surprise was Boromir, and his face was smiling and kind. So here we see Frodo really missing Gandalf. He ponders what he's heard Gandalf say regarding the ring and the quest. I can just kind of like imagine Frodo sitting there talking aloud to the trees like around him, asking why Gandalf couldn't be there to help him, to guide him, to talk with him. It's really a sore trial to have to make, like a massive decision without community helping around you. And I love the juxtaposition that Tolkien puts in this section too. Frodo felt unfriendly eyes on him. He turns and sees Boromir smiling and looking kind. Now, I don't think Boromir was that good of an actor. I think he was truly thinking he was being kind. He was there to take the burden off of Frodo's shoulders. He sees a better way than Frodo. He just sees himself as coming alongside Frodo and providing him with the correct context to make what is really the right decision and take the ring to Minas Tirith. He even says to Frodo, where there are so many, all speech becomes a debate without end, but two together may perhaps find wisdom. I do think he's trying to sell Frodo on the idea, but I also think Boromir truly believes his sale is the right decision. I mean, yeah, it's definitely wrong. Evil people really think that they're evil. Or since I don't believe Boromir's evil, most people do evil things because somehow they've been convinced that it's not evil. Frodo has a different idea and finally gives us a view into his thoughts. You are kind, answered Frodo, but I do not think that any speech will help me. For I know what I should do, but I am afraid of doing it, Boromir. Afraid. Boromir stood silent. Raurast roared endlessly on. The wind murmured in the branches of the trees. Frodo shivered. Suddenly, Boromir came and sat beside him. Are you sure that you do not suffer needlessly? He said. I wish to help you. You need counsel in your hard choice. Will you not take mine? I think I know already what counsel you would give, Boromir, said Frodo. And it would seem like wisdom, but for the warning of my heart. Warning? Warning against what? Said Boromir sharply. Against delay. Against the way that seems easier. Against refusal of the burden that is laid upon me. Against, well, if it must be said, against trust in the strength and truth of men. Now, as much as I love this whole conversation, we can't do the whole thing. As usual, please take time to read through this yourself again. It's really amazing. So now we know for certain Frodo knows what he needs, like what needs to be done, what he needs to do, and he's afraid to do it. He knows it's going to be a harder thing to do than anyone should really have to do, ever. And he already knows what Boromir is going to suggest. But his heart is giving him a warning, so good job there. I find it interesting here how we can already see Boromir's kindness kind of starting to crack. He responds sharply. Why would he respond sharply? Simply from Frodo saying his heart is giving him a warning. I wonder if he thinks like Frodo is going to compare him to Aragorn and say he just doesn't trust Boromir, like specifically. We've seen Boromir be a little bit reluctant to give Aragorn all the honor that, he's due. The true heir of Isildur. We know by remembering forward to a conversation with Faramir that Boromir wishes to be king and not steward of Gondor. Frodo doesn't say anything about Boromir here. He just doesn't trust men as a whole. So it's important to note here, Tolkien capitalizes the word men. When he does that, it's pretty clear he's speaking about the whole race of men, not just a few men or like that dude over there or anything like that. All of them. So as the objective observers, we can see Frodo as even like lumping Aragorn in as a person he doesn't trust with the ring. Boromir, though, takes it personally. Yet that strength has long protected you far away in your little country, though you knew it not. I do not doubt the valor of your people, but the world is changing. The walls of Minas Tirith may be strong, but they are not strong enough. If they fail, what then? We shall fall in battle valiantly, yet there is still hope that they will not fail. No hope while the ring lasts, said Frodo. Ah, the ring, said Boromir, his eyes lighting. The ring! Is it not a strange fate that we should suffer so much fear and doubt for so small a thing? So small a thing, and I have seen it only for an instant in the house of Elrond. Could I not have a sight of it again? Even though Frodo was talking about all men, Boromir brings up Gondor's valiant fight against the enemy, just like he did in the Counts of Elrond. He also accidentally speaks a greater truth too. Aragorn and the Rangers, men all, protected the Shire from outside without the Hobbits knowing. Boromir isn't talking about that. And we can tell because he says Frodo's faraway little country. There's clearly disdain in his voice. I'm the mighty Boromir and you puny Hobbits are so stupid and ignorant of the world around you. And yes, I see the irony here. Of course, as soon as Frodo mentions the ring, Boromir's eyes light up. Ooh, can I just see it again? It's like me asking for just a bite of pizza. I definitely won't just like have 7 pizzas if I just have like 1 bite. It's not gonna work. Why subject yourself to more temptation? Kind of general wisdom there. Frodo, ever the voice of reason since leaving Rivendell, starts seeing where Boromir is going with this. The ring must be destroyed. It can't go to Minas Tirith. No one can claim it. They cannot use it, not shouldn't, cannot. Boromir got up and walked about impatiently. So you go on, he cried. Gandalf, Elrond, all these folk have taught you to say so. For themselves they may be right. These elves and half-elves and wizards, they would come to grief, perhaps. Yet often I doubt if they are wise and not merely timid. But each to his own kind. True-hearted men, they will not be corrupted. We of Minas Tirith have been staunch through long years of trial. We do not desire the power of wizard lords, only strength to defend ourselves, strength in a just cause. And behold, in our need, chance brings to light the ring of power. It is a gift, I say, a gift to the foes of Mordor. It is mad not to use it, to use the power of the enemy against him. The fearless, the ruthless, these alone will achieve victory. What could not a warrior do in this hour, a great leader? What could not Aragorn do, or if he refuses, why not Boromir? The ring would give me the power of command. How I would drive the hosts of Mordor and all men would flock to my banner. I think this is an important section to have here. Here we see the power of the ring, not just taking hold of Boromir, but guiding his thinking and warping his reasoning. Gandalf and Elrond aren't wise, just, they're timid. Caution can appear timid at times. True-hearted men, they can't be corrupted. Isildur was an honored ancestor and king and considered wise by many, and he fell to the ring, as we heard in the council. The men of Gondor don't want power to do much, just overcome their foes, defend themselves. They should use the ring against the enemy, use his own power against him. In a letter to his son Christopher, while talking about World War II, Tolkien states, "You can't fight the enemy with his own ring without turning into an enemy." Yes, enemy capitalized in both spots. And yes, while he's not talking about Boromir at this point, he's talking about real-life politics. We can see his views kind of poured back into the book. It's not that Boromir wants to do anything evil necessarily, he just wants to protect his people. And Gandalf would just want to help people, not be in pain. Galadriel would just make a really nice place for everybody to live. The difference is Gandalf and Galadriel were wise enough to recognize that is exactly how they would get trapped by the ring, corrupted. But Boromir does not realize that. As Boromir moves into his ring-induced monologue about the great alliances he would build, the people he would draw to his banner to throw down the Dark Lord of Mordor, I hope we can all see the irony here. Just a paragraph ago, he was saying he didn't desire power. Further on, we'll kind of see a similar vision happen with Sam when he takes the ring. The ring takes the person's true desires and magnifies them. It brings them to the forefront and says, if a little of this is good, infinitely more must be better. We'll see Sam recognize how untrue that is, but Boromir doesn't. I'll go so far as to say that his teachers didn't really do a great job with him in Gondor. Luckily, Frodo's teachers were wiser and Frodo a more apt pupil. "No, I am afraid," said Frodo, "simply afraid. But I am glad to have heard you speak so fully. My mind is clearer now." "Then you will come to Minas Tirith," cried Boromir. His eyes were shining and his face eager. "You misunderstand me," said Frodo. Frodo here has made up his mind. He knows what to do. And this is something that I feel we miss pretty often when reading, and just kind of going through the book. This is really the first time Frodo has seen the effect of the ring in person. Gandalf simply tells him why it would be bad for him to have the ring. Galadriel gets kind of scary, but she passes her test and doesn't press the issue of the ring. The Nazgul became who they are because of their rings. Frodo hasn't even met Galen yet. He's just heard stories and gotten glimpses of Gollum in the dark. This is his first front row seat to the experience of the temptation of the ring. We all know what happens here. Boromir tries to take the ring from Frodo. Frodo puts on the ring to disappear and runs. Boromir searches for him. "Miserable trickster," he shouted. "Let me get my hands on you. Now I see your mind. You will take the ring to Sauron and sell us all. You have only waited your chance to leave us in the lurch. Curse you and all halflings to death and darkness." Then catching his foot on a stone, he fell sprawling and lay upon his face. For a while he was still as if his own curse had struck him down. Then suddenly he wept. He rose, passed the hand over his eyes, dashing away the tears. "What have I said?" he cried. "What have I done, Frodo? Frodo!" he called. "Come back. A madness took me, but it's past. Come back." Boromir throws out vicious accusations. He had the ring inches from his grasp, and it got away. Now, I do love that Tolkien had Boromir regret his actions almost immediately. I know we've all done something like that before. We've said something out of anger to a friend or spouse, and we've immediately regretted it. But we all know, looking back, the damage was already done. Frodo had fled. Soon he came out alone on the summit of Amonhen and halted, gasping for breath. He saw as through a mist a wide flat circle paved with mighty flags and surrounded with a crumbling battlement. And in the middle, set upon 4 carven pillars, was a high seat, reached by a stair of many steps. Up he went and sat upon the ancient chair, feeling like a lost child that had clambered upon the throne of mountain kings. At first he could see little. He seemed to be in a world of mist in which there were only shadows. The ring was upon him. Then here and there the mist gave way and he saw many visions, small and clear as if they were under his eyes upon a table and yet remote. There was no sound, only bright living images. The world seemed to have shrunk and fallen silent. He was sitting upon the seat of seeing, on Amon Hen, the hill of the eye of the men of Númenor. So Frodo flees uphill, finds himself seated on the seat of seeing on Amon Hen. And again, this is something I just noticed while going through the book this time. Yes, we see Frodo in a world of mist and shadows because the ring was on him, he was wearing it. But when we start to read what Frodo is seeing, we're told he was sitting on the seat on Amon Hen. Now, this seems to indicate the power inherent in the old Númenorian battlements overcame the ring, or the power of the ring, the effect of the power of the ring at this point. Hammond and Skoll agree, I agree with them, whatever. So at least I don't look stupid here. They mention that Christopher Tolkien states in the Treason of Isengard that originally Tolkien spoke of the ring and immediately stated, "Then the virtue of Amon Hen worked upon him." So despite wearing the ring, Frodo is granted great sight by the seat. What does he see? War. But everywhere he looked, he saw the signs of war. The misty mountains were crawling like anthills. Orcs were issuing out of 1,000 holes. Under the boughs of Mirkwood, there was deadly strife of elves and men and fell beasts. The land of the Beornings was aflame. A cloud was over Moria. Smoke rose on the borders of Lorien. Horsemen were galloping on the grass of Rohan. Wolves poured from Isengard. From the havens of Harad, ships of war put out to sea. And out of the east, men were moving endlessly. Swordsmen, spearmen, bowmen upon horses, chariots of chieftains and laden wains. All the power of the Dark Lord was in motion. Then turning south again, he beheld Minas Tirith. Far away it seemed and beautiful, white-walled, many-towered, proud and fair upon its mountain seat. Its battlements glittered with steel, and its turrets were bright with many banners. Hope leaped in his heart. But against Minas Tirith was set another fortress, greater and more strong. Thither, eastward, unwilling his eye was drawn. It passed the ruined bridges of Osgiliath, the grinning gates of Minas Morgul, and the haunted mountains, and it looked upon Gorgoroth, the valley of terror in the land of Mordor. Darkness lay there under the sun, fire glowed amid the smoke. Mount Doom was burning and a great reek arising. Then at last his gaze was held. Wall upon wall, battlement upon battlement, black, immeasurably strong, mountain of iron, gates of steel, tower of adamant he sought. Barad-dûr, fortress of Sauron. All hope left him. This kind of seems to me like a mirror of what Denethor will be going through in Return of the King. Before Frodo sees Mount Doom, he sees Minas Tirith and his hope blossoms. And then he looks east, Minas Morgul, Mount Doom, Barad-dûr. Hope leaves him. And suddenly he felt the eye. There was an eye in the dark tower that did not sleep. He knew that it had become aware of his gaze. A fierce, eager will was there. It leaped towards him, and almost like a finger he felt it searching for him. Very soon it would nail him down, know just exactly wwhere he was. Amon Law it touched. It glanced upon Tol Brandir. He threw himself from the seat, crouching, covering his head with his gray hood. He heard himself crying aloud, "Never! Never!" Or was it, "Verily I come to you"? He could not tell. Then as a flash from some other point of power there came to his mind another thought. Take it off! Take it off! Fool, take it off! Take off the ring! The two powers strove in him, for a moment perfectly balanced between their piercing points. He writhed, tormented. Suddenly he was aware of himself again, Frodo. Neither the voice nor the eye. Free to choose, and with one remaining instant in which to do so. Ooh, baby. So let's talk about the kind of mini conversation in Frodo's head here. With the spirit of Sauron searching for him, exposed on top of the high hill, we see three voices speaking. Tom Shippey, an author of the century, says the first voice saying never is his, Frodo's own voice. The third voice calling him a fool seems pretty obvious in hindsight. It's Gandalf in a high place, striving against the dark power. But whose voice is the subservient one, the one saying, verily I come? Shippey concludes it must be the ring, the sentient creature obeying the call of its master. So here we have absolute evidence the ring is sentient, right? Well, no, it's Shippey's opinion. Though, having met Tolkien in person, holding the exact chair at Oxford Tolkien held. He's, I guess, probably better qualified to make that assertion. Still, I just don't necessarily think the ring is fully sentient. I think its power simply twists people's minds and they end up saying and doing things they wouldn't normally do, or at least plays kind of on their wishes. Frodo here, he clearly wishes to be free of the burden of the ring. So maybe the ring was kind of playing on that. It's subconsciously making him think if he goes to Sauron, then he'll get to just kind of let go of the burden and finally have peace. Maybe death is better than the burden he's currently carrying. At least, that's the ring-induced response. But something else I want to talk about for a quick second is something we'll see from Sauron moving forward a lot. Impatience. I'll pose a question too. If Sauron had not searched so obviously and forcefully for Frodo at this point, would Frodo have come back to himself so, hard? Would he have just given into the despair, maybe given Boromir the ring and handed Sauron the victory? But we see him act a little quickly, as kind of we do a few times forward in the book. Maybe we call it overconfidence. Maybe he didn't realize Gandalf would be able to strive against him and give Frodo that extra push that he needed. But what we see here is the indomitable will of hobbits. Frodo comes to himself. He is no longer pulled by others. His will is not broken. It's his own. He will make the choice, not Sauron, not even Gandalf. Frodo knows what he must do now. Frodo rose to his feet. A great weariness was on him, but his will was firm and his heart lighter. He spoke aloud to himself. "I will do now what I must," he said. "This at least is plain. The evil of the ring is already at work even in the company, and the ring must leave them before it does more harm. I will go alone. Some I cannot trust, and those I can trust are too dear to me. Poor old Sam and Merry and Pippin. Oh, Strider too. His heart yearns for Minas Tirith, and he will be needed there. Now Boromir has fallen into evil. I will go alone at once." Again, we see him not wanting to bring anyone into the danger that he's walking into. His wisdom is growing too. He sees how the ring is hurting the company, what could happen if it were to remain with them and tempt everybody else. And I love how Tolkien starts this whole section with Frodo feeling lighter. So recently, my wife and I were just kind of thinking through a decision for our family. I had a lot of anxiety about it. I knew what I wanted, and then there was kind of what I felt we should do. We eventually got to the point where we said, hey, this is what we should do. We're going to move forward to try and do it. And I immediately felt at peace. I knew it was going to be tough and painful at times, but I was at peace. I really feel for Frodo here. You don't want to, but once you start down this road, it doesn't necessarily become easier, just the load is lighter. Here, Frodo then hears the company calling for him. He knows they're looking for him, but he's made up his mind. He's not taking anyone with him. He won't put them in any more danger than he has to. Slowly, he drew out the ring and put it on once more. He vanished and passed down the hill, less than a rustle of the wind. And with that, Frodo begins his journey to Mordor. And next week, we will see some of the more immediate repercussions of his decisions. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Memberships are open as well. And until next week, always remember, out into the day shall come again.